All right. Welcome to Authentic Stories. We are so excited to have you all joining us today. And Authentic Stories, we bring on individuals with real stories. It's unfiltered, coming to share their life journey experiences with us. So excited to be here again with Sir Buddy Summit. Buddy, say hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? It's good to be back. Yes,
All right.
sir.
All right, great, great, great. So we are super excited to have Julius, right? And Buddy, you're going to be introducing Julius, but let's bring on Julius. He's going to be our guest for today.
Hey, welcome, Julius. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to
Thank you for
join us
having
this
me. Happy to
morning.
be here. Happy to be here.
All right. Julius and I, our kids actually go to the same school, and then we also kind of work together as firefighters. And we were talking the other day, and I was telling him a little bit about authentic stories, and I asked if he'd be willing to come in and share a little bit about his story with us, and he readily agreed. So with that, I'm
Awesome.
going to kind of turn it over to Julius and let's just let you start and just kind of tell us who you are and what you're about.
Well, I appreciate you guys allowing me to grace your program today. Uh, Little old me, I'm just happy to be a part of it, especially seeing you all telling people's life story, giving people perspective on um, different ways that you know God can lead in your life, or that different circumstances that uh, pushed you into the person that you are. And hearing your past stories and everything, it's been a blessing to be able to be a part of that. So I'm just happy and honored to be here. So my name's Julius Hubbard. I am 44 years old. I'm almost 45, so I turned 45 in May. So
45 years young.
40,
There we go.
yeah, yeah. Don't always feel it.
Awesome.
Don't always feel it though. Don't always feel it. But yeah. So I'm currently work as a lieutenant for Chattanooga Fire Department. I've been on the in the fire service for working on 23 years now. So most of my adult life, I've been a firefighter. Also, been married to my lovely wife, Jackie Hubbard, for 17 years now. I got to make sure I get that right because me and her
You
argue about.
better. You
Yeah,
better.
yeah, I know. So when she see this, she's probably gonna say, "Oh, you got the you got the year wrong again." But 17 years of uh, marital compromise. And I mean that in a good way, because that's what
Okay.
marriage is: compromising for for years. So, and I have two beautiful daughters. Like he said, our daughters go to the same school, and that's your oldest daughter? His oldest daughter and my
Yes,
oldest
sir.
daughter are in the same grade, and they are best friends. And that's actually
Okay.
how we met. We were at a birthday party when I first met you, right?
Yep, that is
Yeah,
correct.
we were at a birthday party when we first met, and I think you were about to go through the academy then.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Obviously, he did a good job because he's on. He knocked it out of the park. But yeah, so been a firefighter for almost half of my life, and I am from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was born and raised here, and graduated from um, the first all black high school, Howard High School, in Chattanooga, historic Howard High School of Academics and Technology. Attended college for graphic design, and while I was in college, that was when I got into the fire academy. And then after that, we I started once I was in the fire department, maybe about 4 or 5 years after I joined the department, maybe yeah, around that time I started a company called Gusto Art, and that's a graphic design company. Um, I started that one, and then roughly about 4 years ago. Well, we were actually doing it longer than that, but we'll get into that. But roughly about 4 years ago, we officially started the software development company, Fireside Studios. I started that also with another former firefighter. That's why it's called Fireside. So
Okay.
he's no longer a firefighter, but he's actually he is the lead programmer for the city. So he's at the top of his game.
All right. So there's a lot right there to kind of unpack.
Right? A firefighter, graphic designer, started a company,
It's weird, man. People look at you like you're a unicorn or something.
family man, mercy.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, let me tell you, it sound good, but it ain't all good.
Well, we're gonna hopefully dive a little bit deeper into some of that. So you grew up here in Chattanooga. Let's kind of talk about that for a second. You know, Chattanooga is pretty diverse. It's got a lot of
Yeah, I
different.
want to say it is pretty diverse. I think it's the demographics now. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I think that our current demographics is like 35% Black, and I want to say 12 to 13% Hispanic, and the rest is largely the rest of it's white. I'm sure there's some smaller percentages in there somewhere. So, and I grew up in the inner city, one of the roughest parts of Chattanooga, and so for the longest, I didn't see the other side. All I saw was one side. So,
Yeah.
I was very and until you have lived other places, you don't realize how segregated Chattanooga is.
Yeah.
And so growing up, that's what I didn't know it was segregated because it was normal to me, and it wasn't until I got older that I realized how separated everything was. So I grew up in a predominantly Black neighborhood in the inner city, and I went to Archinab Elementary School, Archinab Middle School, and I lived in the Avondale area of Chattanooga.
So let's talk about that for a second. So I heard you mention a couple times like growing up in the inner city. You know, what does that mean to you, especially now, like looking back on that, and how do you think that played a role in who you are today?
You know, like I said before, when we were talking earlier, I didn't script any of these things. So some of these things I'm having realizations about now. Like as a middle-aged man, I'm looking back on things that I saw that were maybe suppressed or that I didn't pay a lot of attention to because and sometimes some of these things I'm saying are the first time I'm saying them out loud, so I'm trying to get my thoughts correct.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
And so, you know, real quick, while you're gathering your thoughts, you know, that's one thing that we like about this is it's a dialogue, you know, and there's nothing wrong with just kind of sitting back for a second. We like those moments of silence where, you know that you're contemplating and same thing. So it's okay. Take a deep breath and gather your thoughts, and silence is good.
Yeah, and I like that. I mean, because I think a sign of a great orator is someone who's very careful in the words that they choose. And in this day and age, to me, it feels like that's kind of a lost art, or people just kind of just say whatever. Especially when we're talking about social media, people don't think things through. So I try to be careful with the words that I use, and I don't always get it right. And so there may be some things that I say that I may need correction on. So for me, I rushed. I think the whole time I was growing up, it's kind of weird because it was very special community, very close knit community I grew up in. You know, you grow up in inner city Black communities, you have a lot of family, you have a lot of culture, a lot of fellowship, a lot of things that keep that community together. But sometimes in communities like the ones I grew up are underserved and can have a lot of um, unpleasant aspects to the way that I grew up. You know, and I think about like most of my friends growing up or uh, or dead or in jail. You know, from my old neighborhood. You know, there were few of us that made it out of high school. And, you know, for me, that was my goal. It's like I set really short term goals to where I just wanted to be alive. And there were times where my mom has a painting that I did. So I've done art ever since I was little. My dad was a fan of comic books. And I started doing comic books because I'm circle back around. I started doing comic books, started drawing comic books and and doodling because it was an effort to get my father's attention because he loved comic books. He always talked about the art in them. And so for me, and if you know, and then, I'll tell you a little bit about my dad. Like, so my dad is a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. He he fought he fought on the U.S. team in Russia against Russians. I mean, he worked at a nuclear plant, a master carpenter. I mean, like quintessential man. Like you look up man in the dictionary, you're gonna see my dad. So he was Superman to me. But as you can see, he had a lot going on, you know. And with 5 kids, it's hard to get that attention.
Okay.
So that was my way of trying to get his attention by doing art, and it didn't work. You know, I mean, it really didn't. You know that he just had so much going on. You know, but I will say that's what motivated me to do art. And so as I got older in high school, I started dabbling to not just pencil drawings and comic book art. I started painting, and I was going to say that I painted a picture uh, of myself. It was a self portrait of me praying outside the window because every night I would pray before I went to bed, and it was oftentimes at night, and sometimes moonlight would come into the window, and I was praying that a bullet didn't hit me, a stray bullet didn't hit me while I was asleep or my family. And that was really all I prayed for. That was it. It wasn't take care of me and my family, watch over us, bless us in school. I didn't know how to pray. But that would be the only thing I would do. I would make sure I would say that prayer. I mean, there's probably a few other things I'd ask for, during that time. But that was the main thing that I would pray for. So for me, my outlook on growing up in that community, it was love. Don't get me wrong, because there were great times and some of the best times in my life were had there. But I was just focused on getting out. So I kind of floated through life. So there's a lot of things I don't remember until I'm really looking back on it now because I suppressed it. And for me, it was about getting out of that community. And it wasn't, like I said, there are great people in that community. Most of the people in the community are great. I mean, I'm a product of that community. And that's another thing I'm kind of torn on about the way my daughters are being raised, because there's a lot of lessons and a lot of knowledge and skills that can be taught being raised that way, and appreciations you have for things and that other people don't have, and the outlook that other people don't have on what we have today and opportunities we have today. So for me, growing up in the inner city, it was love, it was fun, but it was also dangerous, and it was just waiting till you get out, if you get out.
Thank you for sharing, man. Thank you for sharing. Can you recall, maybe an experience Like, looking at that, you say, man, well, that was a near miss, or you know what I mean? Like, that was,
Yeah, so I give you a good example. So,
uh-huh.
and I feel bad about this to this day, because sometimes, when you grow up in communities like this where opportunity is limited and your reach is 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 also uh, limited. The block you live on feels like the entire world,
Mm,
Mm.
and so you don't know. You don't, people often talk about the perpetual cycle of poverty and violence and disenfranchisement in the type of communities I grew up in. Now, a lot of that is systematic. So I'm not talking about the systematic part of it, but I am talking about the mental indoctrination of having that mentality, and how it can keep you in a perpetual cycle of uh, misfortune. And
okay.
so when you grow up in a community like that, and you only have access to uh, certain things, and when all you hear on the radio and all you see on TV is people that look like you doing the same thing, you kind of feel you continue to do the same thing because that's the perception of what your options are. And so a lot of people will do the same thing because they don't know what the other options are. It's a ignorance. And so for me, I was the same way. I didn't know where, like, that's another thing about why I started Gusto Art, and why I'm so passionate about teaching kids. I also teach kids graphic design curriculum too. But one of the things, the reason I'm so passionate about it is because no one taught me the different avenues in which art can take me, and a lot of the people who reared us didn't know it either. So for me, when I started, when I was growing up, um, when we in the community I lived in, we saw things one way. Uh, either I can go work for somebody, I can play basketball, I can do music, and it's like very limited options. So to go back to what you're saying, what we were doing, there was a lot of things we did that was kind of based on things we heard and music we listened to. Everybody around us was kind of doing it. So for me, you say you close a near miss situation. Uh, Me and a cousin of mine, it was right when I don't know if you remember Super Nintendos.
Okay.
You remember? I mean, y'all old enough to remember that, right?
Yeah.
Super Nintendos had just come out. I'm talking about brand new. My dad, he bought us a Nintendo. That was first thing he bought us, and honestly, uh, that's the only thing when we were kids that I can remember him ever buying us that was expensive.
Mm.
He bought us a Nintendo. So we had a Nintendo. Super Nintendo came out. We thought it's no way we're getting a Super Nintendo, but we were game fanatics, and so my cousin came to me and said, "Hey, I'm going over a friend of mine's house to hang out. Do you want to come with me?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll come. I'll come with you." I didn't even know who this person was, and we ride on the handlebar. I'm riding on his handlebars. He's riding his bike, and we riding through East Chattanooga, and we pull up at his friend's house, and we walk up to their house, and the house, they're not there. I mean, because back then we didn't have cell phones. Obviously, we couldn't call and say, "Hey, we were on our way." You just pop up over people's house and say, "Hey, I just want to hang out." We get there and no one's there, and we rode probably at least 3 or 4 miles to get there, so it wasn't like right around the corner. So we get there. He's like, "Oh man, they're gone." He looks in the window. He sees a Super Nintendo in the window. He says, "Man, they got a Super Nintendo in here."
Mm,
And I said, and I didn't come for any of that. I was just coming to hang out. He says, you think you can get in that window?
Mm.
And I said, yeah. And he's my older cousin. He's my big cousin. So
Mm.
I want to impress him. You know, I'm scared to say no to him. And he says, hey, you think you can squeeze through this window and get that Nintendo? So long story short, I'm like, yeah, I can get in there. Never done a crime before in my life. I climbed through the window. I I don't think we had to break a glass or nothing. I climbed through the window, grabbed the Nintendo, and I probably was maybe 12 around this time. And we make it out, and we're riding back to my house, and I'm on the front of his handlebars holding the brand new Super Nintendo, riding through the neighborhood. And at the time, I don't even feel bad about it because I'm thinking we just got a brand new Super Nintendo. And so it wasn't necessarily a close call, but what made it bad was for me, and reason I think about it to this day is because I didn't know the friend that we were going to see was actually a friend of mine too. And so later on, I saw him. He was really upset, and I'm asking, what's going on, man? What's wrong? Why are you mad? Well, I think it was one day we were at school, and I'm asking him why is he upset? He's all down. He says, man, somebody broke in my house and stole my Super Nintendo.
Mm.
And at this time, I couldn't say, you know, I mean, you know, if you're from the hood, I can't come out and say, oh, it was me, you know, or it was my cousin, and it wasn't really my intention to do it. So I went home. I felt bad about it. I never did tell him that I did it, but later on in life, I went by their house. This was much later in life. I'm talking about I was an adult. You know, this was. I want to say it happened when we were in middle school, and maybe when I was about 21. I still felt bad about it. Every time I thought about it, it just plagued me. And I'm a church boy. I've been in the church my entire life. Like I went to the same church. I went to Church of the Lord Jesus Christ of the Apostolic Faith for 30 years of my life. So it isn't like I didn't know right from wrong, but I'm trying to fit in with people. I went by their house one day, and I left. I think it was $150 inside their mailbox, and I never even came back to see if anybody got it. I never even told anybody I did that until now. You know, and so and it's like that's how, you know, things like that can just weigh on you and weigh on your conscience, you know, for years if you don't do something about it. So I mean, I wouldn't say that was a close call, but that's something that I always think about, and I think about some of the reckless stuff we did when we were young.
Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned, you know, throughout that, you know, the mental indoctrination, you know, and I hear your story, and to me it's like, okay, you kind of, it was almost like you came upon a crossroads. You know, it sounds like, okay, well, on one hand we can continue down this path, or on the other hand, you know, and hey, I feel guilty.
And crossroads, you know, crossroads is a good word. You know, when you're young, you may not know what you want out of life, but I think we all find out early what we don't want. And so for me, I knew I didn't want to remain in that type of environment, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to get out and where it was going to, you know, what could take me, what can get me out of it.
Yeah.
So that was a time in my life then when I realized I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this person. I'm not going to say that I have had a perfect existence after that. You know, being a young man, I made plenty of mistakes, but I can say that I've never done anything that egregious.
Yeah. So would you say that was kind of a turning point in your life to a certain degree?
Well, I've had many turning points. I mean, because I think there's a lot of lessons to learn, and it's like I don't feel like we learn everything in one lesson. I will say uh, it was a turning point from a life of you know doing crimes like that. Yeah, because I realized how blessed I was, how fortunate that I was. But then I also felt the guilt of it being
Hmm.
one of my friends that I had done it to, and how bad he felt, and how he I think he told me that he had begged his mom for that for Christmas or something. He got it for a special occasion, and I knew that where I was from, I couldn't go and tell him that I had done it,
Yeah.
because that would you know cause other things. So it was definitely a turning point from that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think life is full of road signs. I mean, we talk about a road of life. There are signs. It's just a matter of if we pay attention to it. If we're speeding through life and we're not paying attention to the signs that we're passing. So before that happened to me, I probably had saw signs of what was going to happen or what could happen, or I've seen people do things like what I did and end up in bad spots. But it's a matter if you choose to um, to heed those signs, because um, analogy I use is that some people speed through life, and if you're speeding, then you don't always see the signs of what a curb ahead, a stop sign ahead, or because I feel like, and I try to figure this out with my daughters, how do I get them to not have to go through what I went through? And I'm one of those road signs, and I have to understand that they they may follow it, they may not, you know. So
Yeah.
for me, that was a road sign that I did that I ignored, but now it steered me in a whole other direction of my life.
For sure. So, I appreciate that you kind of brought that into to current and talking about your children and, example. And I heard you earlier when you said, that you kind of got into art as a way to get attention from your dad. So, since you brought up your daughters, how, having that as what you did to get attention from your dad, has that affected you with your own kids? Knowing that, okay, well, I wanted to seek that attention and get that admiration and whatnot. Has that impacted you as a father now, with your own children?
These are some good questions. These are really some good questions, man. Because absolutely, I will say 1,000%. Um, I remember the struggle it was, especially when you're one of five siblings. Um, the struggle it was to get attention from your parents. It's particularly my father. I think that now I'm overcompensating. I'm probably driving them crazy as much as attentive as I am, and as granular as I get with every question that they have in description. I think it gets to where they don't even want to ask me questions anymore, because I pay so much attention to everything they say and do, because I wanted to. I used to daydream when I was younger about my dad. About my dad coming in, coming into my classroom and picking me up in front of everybody, because I thought he was Superman. I thought, hey man, my dad is the coolest man on the planet. I want to be just like him. I wish my dad would take me here, do this here, show up at this event, that event, and that kind of never happened for me.
Mm.
And it was all just a dream, a daydream. And so my daughters told me one time. This was when they were, I think Sage was, she was in the first grade or second grade, and she told me that she prayed that I would be there first to pick them up from school. so that she could be the first one to leave school. So not only did I take that to heart, I was there first until they got out of elementary school. I was there. I always would get there anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour early, just so that their name would be one of the first names called. And if I was ever running late, I parked my car and I walked to the front. And I think you smiling because you know what I'm talking about. I would park my car and I would walk to the front door just so their name would be called first.
Yeah.
And so for me, that is exactly how I handle my daughters now, because of some of the I guess I don't know if you call them daddy issues, but some of the things that I wish my dad would have done for me. So I handle my girls a lot different. I'm very attentive to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. Appreciate that.
Man, so the conversation, definitely hearing a lot of the faith component, right? How does your faith, help you, day by day, whether on a work perspective, family, and, whatever trials, crucibles that comes your way?
Honestly, this is an easy question, and it's really simple. So most of my life, I grew up in a very legalistic um, organization. I grew up, like I said, I grew up apostolic, and so it was a lot of. And for the record, that church is not that way today. But when I was growing up, it was that way um, in the past. I think there's been a lot of evolution in the doctrine now. But when I was growing up there during my formative years, it was very legalistic, and so it was constant worrying, constant stress about, am I good enough, or is am I going to hell for this, or and it was really stressful, and it wasn't. When I think back on it, I wasn't happy. I mean, we said we were happy, like a lot of people who identify as Christian. They say they're happy, but do they really understand grace? And for me, my life didn't change until I understood what grace really was. And that wasn't until much later in life. That I was in my 30s when I learned about what grace really was. So for me, the way that I approach that is that um, I give grace, not because I want it, it's because it's been given to me. And so for me, I feel like it's my job to tell people about God's amazing grace, because what it does is, even in Christians, what it does is it lifts a weight off of you. Like I said, I was Christian my whole life, and it wasn't until I learned about true grace that the weight was lifted off of me. So each day I try to be understanding of people having a human experience, and people will always make mistakes, and people like myself, I make mistakes, you know, daily. I try to be a better person than I was yesterday, but at the end of the day, I need a savior, and so I try to tell people, um, I mean, because when you don't when when you move through life like you don't make mistakes, or you don't sin, or you don't fall short, then to me, you're telling me that you didn't need Christ. You didn't need a savior. So for me, the way I move through my life is being that for other people, is to be that judgment free zone, and that understanding zone, letting people know that, hey, we all fall short. And so I try to be that way with my family, with my daughters. I think they have a lot less weight on them than I did growing up, uh, with some of those um, burdens that I wore around my neck. They don't have to wear those now. And so when they do mess up, I remind them of God's grace, and we thank the Lord for that. And so that like I said, that's simple for me, because once you learn about grace, the Paul says it's the simplicity of Christ, and you start learning how simple it is. I think Satan wants you to believe that it's more complicated than it is to drive you away. And if we keep reminding people that it's not complicated. I think we never did touch on it, yesterday. But I told you, I was telling you about the way I see the world. I see it a lot simpler than people do. And there are a lot of people who put up facades and they want to appear to be something when they don't realize that we are all messed up.
Yeah.
We are all messed up people.
Break it down to us, Julius. Break it down.
We are all messed up. And until you realize that, you can't have grace for someone else if you don't think you need grace.
That should be like a shirt.
You know what? That's a good idea.
that should be in your graphic design.
Hold on, I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. So, and it really is that simple. I think we have allowed people to complicate it, And I'm not trying to go into the whole doctrine thing, but I'll just say that for me, I think our actions remind us every day how much Christ was needed. When I see the issues that I struggle with, I'm like, I could not do this. There's no way I could do it without him.
Yeah.
And to me that gives me more faith in his finished cross work. Was it Paul that said, the things that I wish I didn't do, I do. The things that I wish I did, it just is, man. Until we start having those real conversations with each other that, hey, we all messed up, man. And that's good. That's good. Because the lower we put ourselves, the higher we glorify him. Because how much glory is it in saving something that was almost perfect anyway?
Love it. It's, great conversations for sure. Definitely want to touch base a little bit with your current role. If I have it correct, you're a lieutenant, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Talk to me about that. Which organization are you a lieutenant for? How do you apply grace in that, space as you lead, guide, instruct, individuals that reports to you,
Carefully and with great tact, especially in the environment. You got to be careful about proselytizing and things like that. But in the opportunities that present itself, you have to take it. You can't shy away from it. And it isn't just with people you work with. It's situations in which you find yourself in. And I'm sure Buddy can attest to this. There are tons of people that I've worked with that we've had conversations about scripture, about the Bible, and there have been people that have questioned the validity of the Bible or their faith in Christ because of some of the things we've seen. And at that point they open the door for the conversation. And if you don't know your word, if you're not 2 Timothy 2:15, if you're not a workman that knows the word, and you don't know how to rightly divide the word of truth, and you're not studying the word, you miss those type of opportunities. Because we all get opportunities to be ambassadors for the word of God. But if you're not prepared, then those opportunities slip through your fingers. And in the past, that has happened. There's been opportunities where someone's come to me with something and I didn't know. I didn't know what to tell them. And at some point, I realized, okay, if I'm saying I'm a Christian, I need to. I really got to take this thing seriously. Like, you know, I mean, either that or quit calling myself a Christian. Huh? You said what?
Study to show thyself approved.
Yeah, study to show thyself approved. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't couldn't quote it verbatim. But yeah, so and once you do that, you really you can become fearless when you approach it, because you understand it. Like, there are a lot of people who know the Bible. Satan knows the Bible. There are a lot of people who can quote you scriptures, but there are a lot of understanding the word is a whole different thing. Understanding comes from God, you know, and that understanding, like, coming and quoting scriptures doesn't mean anything if you don't even understand what it means. So until you start rightly dividing and understanding what grace is, you can't understand it. It's impossible to understand it. I mean, because I came from that. I came from a place where everything was kind of just, you know, jumbled in and thrown together, and it was, you know, and it was no sifting out what was, you know, what came from grace and what didn't, you know, and so it was complicated to know where to send people in scripture. It's like, well, if I want to be saved, you know, you ask 10 different Christians how to be saved, you may get 10 different answers.
You might get 12 different answers.
Yeah, 12 different answers. And there's only one answer, especially under grace. And that's when you learn, you know, and that's when you've learned, okay, this is what this is what we are supposed to go out and tell the world. This is the good news. We're supposed to tell people that, you know, that Christ died for your sins and was rose, and is now making intercession. So what I'm saying is for me, you know, on the job, you take those opportunities when you can. It's not about, you know, beating people over the head with it. As a matter of fact, and like I said, Buddy can tell you this too, there are a lot of people who do that, who will beat people over the head with the Bible, and there every time you talk to them, it's you know, I'm studying this, I'm Bible this and I'm Bible that, and they don't understand what that's doing. Oftentimes is it makes people not even want to talk to you, because it may be they want to connect with you on another level first before you introduce something like that, and they may not want to feel judged. So if you could, they're okay. I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I did a mural in downtown Chattanooga, and the theme of the mural, I did it for Electric Power Board, EPB. And I know Nick, you may not be familiar with EPB, but I know Buddy is. And so I did a mural for them, and the theme of it was the soul of MLK. So they wanted something that represented the soul of Martin Luther King. And so I applied to do the mural, and I came up with a concept, and I finished the concept, and the concept was a painting of Martin Luther King, and it was in black and white. It was just his face in black and white, but the top of his head was open, and all his thoughts were coming out of his head. But all of the thoughts that were coming out of his head were all in color. I'm talking about bright Disney color. And it was Disney birds flying out of his head, and it was like the audacity of someone who lived in a black and white era to dream in color, you know, and see things that other people couldn't see. So it was really basically trying to teach people about the audacity and the soul of Martin Luther King, for him to believe fairy tales, essentially Disney fairy tales about equal rights in a time where that seemed impossible, right? But it was kind of Salvador Dali-esque, you know, and it was where you kind of had to look at it and figure it out. But it was color and black and white, and it was just beautiful to behold. It's beautiful to look at, right? So I sent the concept before I did it. I sent the concept to my cousin who lived in Philadelphia, who is an animator. He's also an artist. And I asked him what he thought about it. He says, so what's the theme of it? And I said, the theme is the soul of MLK. And he said, I like it. He says, but we're talking about social justice and racism. He says, that's a serious topic, and I don't feel like you should approach it in an abstract way. I feel like it should be more overt, your messaging. And so I paused him right there. I said, I understand what you're saying, but you got to understand where you live and where I live. You live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, largely progressive, diverse, blue town, right? I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I live in the South. If I were to do a painting that was overt, where we had Martin Luther King saying Black Lives Matter or holding up a fist or something, before people even take the message in, they're turned off. Because that's all the people who live in that area. I got to keep in mind who lives in that area. So the people going through that area right there, as soon as they see that, they'll just keep driving. But see, the way I created this painting here is I make you love it before you understand what it even means. And there were so many people that came up to me after I painted and they said, this is an amazing painting. Oh my God, what does it mean? Then I tell them what it means. And it's too late. You already said you like it now, so it's too late to back out now, right? So
the next time we bring you on the show, we'll ask you to bring that mural to show the painting.
yeah, I will. And so that's the same way that I approach talking about scripture. Is that you have to, it's like a Trojan horse, essentially. You find common ground, you spoonful of sugar, you talk about other topics, and you find a way to marry those issues together and show them how Christ's sacrifice relates to the things that they're dealing with and how scripture can relate to it. But I found that it's pretty effective. I think people, when they see me in the way I present myself, people may not think that I'm as devout a Christian as I am, because I may not present the same way most people do, especially in the South. And then before they know it, we're in a conversation about God's grace. And so that's kind of how I approach it in the fire service, with people I work with, and with people in the community, but only if they open that door first.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think we have a couple more questions. And I know we're getting.
Did that make sense though?
To closing. Yes.
Okay.
For sure. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's very easy, especially in today's society, like you said. We live in a society that promotes, or rather encourages, living with a facade, and being able to be real and just down to earth about who you are, and walk the walk and talk the talk is completely different, than the society that we live in, where it's like, okay, let me put on my social media persona, if you will.
Yeah.
So, I think you 100% hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. I just feel like we have to dress that stuff down, where, like you said, social media these days, you could be whatever you want to be, and you can lie to yourself till you start believing it. And so I remember, I'm telling another quick story. My granddad is, I think he's 91 or 92, and I talk to him a lot about life. I don't talk to him as much now as I had been. So, but growing up, I would always talk to him, and I would talk to my uncle about life things. I always try to find older people who had more life experience than me, and so I used to, there were things that I was going through, and that was of my own creation, like problems that I had, and I'd go to him and I'd say, "Oh man, I don't know what I'm gonna do, Granddad. I don't know how I'm gonna live with myself after this decision that I made or this thing that I did." And he would say to me, and he would always be real nonchalant because he's never shied away from things he's done in his life and things problems that he's had or challenges that he's had, and he says, he says, you saved, aren't you? I'd be talking to him about gloom and doom and how my life is over now because I made this mistake, and he says, you saved, aren't you? And I said, oh, yeah. He says your problem is you thought you were a good person. And I said, well, yeah. He says, well, now you're not. And he says, you should rejoice for that, for the sacrifice Christ made for you, even though you're the person that you are. And it's one of those things, either you believe it or you don't. He asked me, do you believe that? Do you believe that Christ sacrificed for people just like you? And I have to say, yeah, I do. Okay, well, stop going around here thinking you're a great person. Stop feeling so bad stop feeling so bad for well, maybe the word wasn't stop feeling bad, but he would say, move with the understanding that we're to grow in grace and to try to become better people every day. But Christ didn't die for perfect people. So that's what I mean about the facade, is we walk around like we're great. And then one day you have to look yourself in the mirror and realize you're not great. If you're honest with yourself. Like I think you and me talked about George Washington's farewell address when he says, he realized he's too sensible of his defects not to think it probable that he made many errors. That's kind of a creed I live by. Almost, it's like I realize that we all have to do that. You have to be humble enough to recognize that we make mistakes all the time.
Yes, sir.
And that's what he knew. So I'm sorry, I ain't trying to get on my soapbox or nothing.
Oh no, you were here to share, and we appreciate you opening up and answering some of these thoughtful and tough questions that we're throwing out at you.
Well,
so go ahead.
No. I just said I wish my story was a bit more interesting, though. Hope y'all can get enough content.
Oh
no, this is fantastic.
It's your story, it's your authentic story, man. So that's what makes it unique. You know what I mean? You're sharing your faith journey, what you continue to go through on the daily, and living the life, right? Understanding that grace, is definitely sufficient, and doesn't really make any sense to be living with that facade, right? Just being authentic, knowing fully well that we make mistakes on the journey called life, right? But we're not gonna stay down. We're gonna get up. We're gonna rise up. We'll continue to walk on the journey as we go through life. So it's awesome. It's refreshing to hear. It's and just taking it all in. It's really powerful. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate. I'm honored that you would want to hear my story.
For real. So, question though, from a leadership perspective, what's one of the hardest lessons you've had to learn as a leader? I know you would have gone up through the ranks. You would, you train, you develop, you motivate. But like from a leadership lesson, like what would you say would be like a hard lesson you learned?
You mean a specific example or
It
just
doesn't matter. It could be, it doesn't have to be specific, but
okay?
general
Well,
principle.
hmm, I mean,
Peer
one thing comes to mind is that, and let's say these are good questions. I mean, when I came in here, I hadn't prepped or I hadn't thought of any of this stuff. So this is all interesting stuff here. So I'm thinking I learned um, that the burden of that that being a leader or being put in a position of leadership isn't being exalted into a place to be necessarily honored or
Mm.
or um, or what's the word I'm looking for? Um, you're not being exalted as some lord or king over people. You're a
Mm.
servant. You become more of a servant,
Mm.
and obviously, it's as you get up, as you move up in rank, you start realizing, for one thing, uh, how important the people under you are, and um, how important it is for you to remember who they are and remember and to put yourself in a position um, to set an example for those people that are following you, that they will want to lead you. Like I guess what I'm trying to say is that the burden becomes heavier when you move up in rank. And I know
Mm.
that seems kind of obvious, but there are some people who move up in position, rank, whether that be in the fire service, whether that be in the company, and they feel like it's going to get cushier, it's going to be less I have to do, I'm going to get paid more. But in the fire service, it multiplies. You have to know everything that people under you know, plus plus more stuff on top of that, and you have to become more of an example, right? Meaning that you have to work harder than you did when you were at a lower rank. You have to work just as hard to earn the respect of those men. You don't get to stop working out. You have to work out more because now those people are looking to you for example, and you never get the rest. Like you shouldn't rest when you move to those higher positions. You should be that person that everyone on your crew can look to as an example of how to be, and that's more of a burden. So I think for me, it's more like I think every time anything I do, I wonder what will people under me think of me if I did that.
Mm.
If I went in here and I decided to go to sleep in the recliner and not exercise, if I went in here and I decided not to study or train for, you know, for a few rotations or something. I mean, I understand some people may not train every single day, but what will people think of me if I don't try to embrace the camaraderie that we should be having? If I don't cook, You know, I think cooking and eating together in the fire service is important because, you know, around the dinner table, that's when you get to know people, learn people, and you start formulating those tighter bonds and relationships. And because to me, as a leader, it's not just important for your crew to know. It's not just important for you to know your shortcomings. It's important for your crew to know your shortcomings. It's important for you to know theirs. So everything that you struggle with, you should openly talk to your crew about things like that so that they know and they can help as a crew. And you should know theirs too. You should know all your crew's strengths and weaknesses because not everybody has to be good at every single thing. And so I feel like one of the things I learned from, you know, being in the lieutenant's position is how much work it is to um, try to try to create that confidence in your crew that you can lead them. Like Buddy can tell you, man, there's nothing like going into a burning building behind somebody that you have no confidence in, no faith in, no trust in. It's nothing like, it's a terrible feeling. And it also can be a very relieving feeling to know that the guy you're following, you know his capabilities and you know what he's put in, and you know that he's not going to ask anything of you that he won't do himself or he hasn't done himself. So it's just a constant thing, you know. I remember thinking when I came in that the officers had an easy job, you know. They didn't have to go in the, you know, necessarily. They didn't have to pull the lines off. They didn't have to cut the holes in the roofs. They didn't have to do all those things. But a good officer does all of that and more. And once I got in that position, I realized that it was much more work than I thought it was going to be.
The leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, buddy. I see you have that question coming in.
Yeah, so you know, I think we're a little bit over time, so
Oh.
apologize for that.
Oh no, you
But
good. Listen. I'm good. I've already made arrangements. I'm good.
but I do have a final question for you as we kind of wrap this up. You know, we've kind of talked a little bit about your past, who you are and where you grew up and how that impacted you, you know, and who you are today. We've talked a bit about your career and in your leadership, your spirituality and your family, you know, and now I kind of want to talk about your legacy and the authentic self that you want to leave behind. You know, so my question for you is, you know, when your kids, you know, look back, when you look back, you know, 20, 30 years from now, what is that one authentic story that you hope that they share about who their father was when no one was watching?
You know, that's kind of tough because I'm trying to categorize it because, you know, what do I want to be remembered as in the fire service? What I want to be remembered as an artist? And what do I want my kids to remember and know?
Yeah.
Give us in all three domains then. Give us in all three.
No, I gave myself homework, didn't I? Because it's three different things. I mean, art is different because
Well,
art was like an ego thing for me. And still can be. It's a I kind of look at art because some people look at art as expression. It's therapeutic. It's something to get, you know, something for someone to get their emotions and feelings out and to tell a broader story about a specific topic or theory or idea. To me, my uncle, he was. Growing up, my uncle was. They always said he was the best artist in the family. So, and with he had the opportunity to draw for DC Comics, but like I talked about the neighborhoods we grew up in, that street life got a hold of him, and that those opportunities got dashed. But there was still the drawings that he created, and so for me, it became a competition. I wanted to be better than my uncle because I knew that would make my dad proud, and I felt like it would. I felt like, hey, if my uncle can draw for DC Comics, my dad loves DC Comics and Marvel Comics, then he'll love my artwork. So it was, for me, it was always about being better than my uncle Darren. And I got to a point to where I was better than my Uncle Darren. Well, at least I felt like I was. He'll argue that I wasn't, but I felt like I was better than my Uncle Darren. And then I stopped drawing for like 10 years, even though I was in graphic design school. But after I got in the fire service, I just quit. I quit doing art altogether. And then I started seeing like with social media, people popping up and doing things online. And it was when it first taken off, and people were popping up, doing art here, doing art there. And it got reinvigorated for me when I started seeing that. It like rejuvenated my my desire to compete as an artist. So it was all about, I want to be better. I want to be the best artist. I want to be able to do, whether that be like this, this Reaper behind us, whether it be just graphic design stuff I do, or whether it be comic book stuff, or whether it be paintings, or I want to do everything. And I wanted people to say, no one's better than Julius Hubbard at art, period. And I remember I was taking Charlie Newton. He's a internationally known artist. He's based in Chattanooga. He's been doing art over 50 years, and he has paintings all over the world. And he told me, you got to pick a lane. He says, you can't do comic book art, you can't do painting, you can't do animation. And I didn't listen to him. And so far, I've been pretty successful at doing everything. So like we have a successful app, that we launched. I have Google actually flew us to Silicon Valley last year, because of that app we created. We can touch on Fireside Studios, but yeah, and I've done artwork for celebrities. I've done graphic design work for MLB. I've done graphic design work for Blue Cross Blue Shield and other large companies like that. So I'm trying to looking for something to go bad in the art world. It's like, so from that point, that was what I would want my legacy to be in art world. I just want to be known as a great artist, not necessarily a deep thinking artist or nothing. Just technically skilled, I guess, artist. So anyway. So in art world, that's what I want to be known as, and that's pretty superficial, but it's true. As a firefighter, I feel like, and it's hard to leave a legacy behind the fire service, because I know so many people that retire, and almost as soon as you walk out that door, people forget you were ever there. So it's probably futile to even say these things, because it is sad. I mean, you go to any department, and it's, around the country, and they'll tell you the same thing. The day you retire is the day people forget your name. So I guess I want to be known as someone who was reliable. Simple as that. Someone that, whether that means someone you could talk to, whether that was someone, when it was time to get on the truck, he was on the truck. When it was time to go fight fire, I knew he was going to be right there with me. I knew he wouldn't leave me. Just someone who was reliable. And I think that's important. Thing to instill into people that are coming in now is to Be an asset. Be reliable. Be someone that when people turn around, you're not gone. Or if we have to make it to a scene, know that this guy's gonna get us there. That's all I want to be. Is I want someone to be able to trust that I'm gonna do my job. So, fire service. The kid one is a little harder though. I think I want my daughters to, and I'm trying to think of a story because there are tons of stories. Maybe the story is the one I told earlier, is that they had my attention, and they knew that I loved them. They knew that I poured everything into them that I had, because I felt like for me that wasn't done for me growing up. And so I was talking to Sage one day, and Jules, and this is an example of what I mean. Jules asked me, because I know in the news you've seen a lot of stuff about immigration and ICE and all that type of stuff going on, and I watch a lot of news, and plus kids have been hearing about it. She's been hearing kids at school talk about it, and she asked me what immigration meant. And so I went into this long spiel of what the word immigration means, and what it means in this context, and what it means to be a migrant and all this. And I went around the world. And so Sage was in the car too. And I asked her, I said, like probably maybe halfway through my explanation, I said, Sage, did you hear what I said? And Sage said, huh? What? And I said, and I said, were you listening to me? And she says, no, sir. And she knows I take that serious. Like if I'm explaining something specifically, if your sister asked a question, then you listen to everybody, But I asked her, I said, well, why weren't you listening? And she said, because it was boring. And I was like, and I always thought be honest, but hey, it was boring. And I think that's the problem now with my girls, is I get on their nerves because I explain everything to a fault. It's because I'm compensating. So for me, I know this is a long-winded answer to that question, but I want them to know that there's nothing I wouldn't do for them, and that I was always there for them. If they say my dad was always there for me, simple as that, that's important to me. I know that sounds boring and cliche, but it's the truth. So.
Well. Thank you so much for.
You give me more time, I probably could have come up with something more poetic.
No, no, that's incredible, man. That is incredible for sure. Thank you so much for joining. Spending the time to have the deep conversations, right? Conversations around family, faith, fire service, and your legacy, right? This is Julius, and let me tell you, he wants for us to remember him in 3 domains, right? So from the art perspective, he's not trying to be his uncle, but he's trying to be the great artist.
I want to be the GOAT.
You want to be the GOAT, the greatest artist that ever lived, right? So that's what he want to be remembered for. From the fire service standpoint, he wants you to know, like from a legacy perspective, that he is reliable, dedicated, committed, somebody that's always there you can talk to. You know, he's right there beside you, fighting the fires and just making the impact accordingly. Then the legacy for his family, for his kids. Daddy is always there. Daddy poured everything into them, right? You know, all the attention, all the love for sure. Daddy gave it all to his family and don't want you to forget that. He poured everything. Well, thank you for joining us, Julius. It
Thank
was
you
a
for having
great
me. Thank you.
conversation.
It was an honor, man. It really was.
Until
Thank
next
you.
time, this is Authentic Stories.
All
All
right.
right.